everyone. So recently I blogged about what we can do to improve engagement at the workplace, and since then I've had quite a few industry peers who've come back and said that it's worth exploring the topic a bit more, especially around the role managers can play in boosting engagement at the front line. So today we're actually at the RISE conference, which is one of the biggest tech conference in Asia, in Hong Kong, where some of the most engaging and forward-looking managers are convening and interacting. And we figured this would be the best place to share our perspective. So Alex, can we talk about the opportunity managers have to drive engagement?
Absolutely, it's a huge opportunity, and we often hear this from companies. They know that their managers are at the front line of engagement with their staff, and yet managers are saying, hey, I've got a day job, this isn't my full-time work to drive engagement with this team. So managers are often subjected to KPIs to drive engagement. They go to a lot of training workshops for the skills around engagement, but what we're often lacking in some of these initiatives around engagement is really understanding the motivations of those managers themselves, the drivers that those individuals have, why they want to be managers, what they want to fulfill through this role that they're playing, and that's the missing piece that we see in the market at the moment.
That's actually a very good point, because oftentimes we only talk about how we use training to enhance the skills of the managers, but we don't really talk about motivation enough. But managers must have the motivation to lead in order for them to show up as good managers consistently. And in order to do that, we can look at the issue from a psychology perspective when we try to incentivize our managers. But as far as I know, a lot of the companies these days don't really have a systematic approach to incentivize their managers with their motivational needs in mind. And as a result, the link between management performance and the positive outcomes grounded in personal motivations is often quite blurry for a lot of the managers. So Alex, any thoughts on what we can do to strengthen this link?
Certainly. Well, the first thing is we need to know what these motivations are, not just in a generic sense across the board, but for individual people. We often hear from leaders, complaints like, oh, my staff are just all coin operated, or they're all motivated just by the time off work. And these blanket statements can be really undermining to actually getting to know these managers as individuals. So it might seem like a huge task, and especially for big corporations, this is quite daunting, but find a method or find a way of identifying the motivations, the drivers of those individual people. Once we understand those drivers, we can get, throughout this process, we get our design thinking hats on and we start digging in to understand the insights. If this is your driver and this is your motivator, what does that mean in terms of how you're going to behave, in terms of how we should incentivize you, in terms of how we should recognize you? So for managers to deliver a great engagement experience for your staff, they themselves have to be engaged, and we have to go that extra mile.
I agree with you. And I want to add on your point about using extrinsic and intrinsic incentives. A lot of the research has shown that if we too heavily rely on using a traditional carrot and stick approach to incentivize managers, we can actually lower their intrinsic driver to lead in the long term. So in order to sustain good management behavior, it's really important that we focus on nourishing the intrinsic drivers to lead. And here I see that role modeling and storytelling become very important. For role modeling, it's important, that the managers see that senior leaders walk the talk, because we cannot expect them to show up as good people managers if they don't see their leaders do the same. And for storytelling is a very good way to effective storytelling is a very good way to communicate change and motivate behavior. So when it comes to promoting good management, it's important for companies to frame the storyline around how management performance can lead to positive outcomes for managers themselves, their teams, and the culture.
Yeah, I think you really hit the nail on the head. And what I would call that is when we don't get it right, it's a motivation killer, to be honest. So we often talk about management as as a chain of command or a network of responsibility. And to your point around the storytelling, these are the vehicles that allow leaders to show their own purpose and their own why, their reason for being engaged in the organization, and allowing that to be passed on to managers beneath them as well.
Absolutely. So to recap, to drive management performance for our managers as a way to boost engagement at the front line, focusing on skills alone is not enough. We also need to add motivation into the formula and tap into the why power for managers to lead. And to do that, we need to understand their motivation needs and develop insights-based solutions while trying to nourish the intrinsic drivers to lead and avoiding the motivational killers. And what are your thoughts? We'd love to hear your insights. Please feel free to leave a comment down below, or you can ping us for a coffee chat. Bye-bye.
Thank you.